Continuing now, the Bir and Shem Havaya. The point being that Shem Havaya is Shem Ba'etzem Shem HaMiyuchad, the essential name, the unique name of Hashem. So notwithstanding the fact that there are letters, which means limitation, in terms of the expression of Velikus, nonetheless, it's a different kind, different order of Giloi, the Giloi Etzem, of a completely different order than the other names. Analogies to the difference between Eisis HaChkik and Eisis HaKsiva, as explained yesterday. Now, Bira Ingeni began in detail explaining the Daled Eisis of Shem Havaya, employing the Moshel of a Rav, that even though the Rav gives only the Nekuda to the disciple, to the Mekabel, and the Mekabel is of a completely different level, not in the world of intellect of the Rav. However, in the Nekuda, the essence is conveyed. Notwithstanding the radical changes and the radical process that the Rav has to go through in his own mind, and then in his actual articulation of the idea to the Mekabel, to the Talmud, notwithstanding radical changes, the Nekuda, the essence remains. And that's why after 40 years of toil and maturity on behalf of the Mekabel, he's able to discern and discover the Pnimius HaSeichel as it is in the mind of the Rav. Now, it continues, page 371. So the initial stage was the Yud and the Kuda. So the Rav has to distill the entire idea into a simple and conveyable point. He has to stop thinking about the idea as he thinks about it. It has to be a complete radical stop thinking in that way, and now start thinking in terms of the Mekabel. It's a radical shift in the mind of the master, of the Rav, to think in terms of the Mekabel, and in terms of how to convey the idea to the Mekabel. So after completely stopping to think about it the way he does, that's the great Tzimtzum, then the idea is distilled in a Nekuda. As he says that, the point that the idea distilled in a singular point, which was stated earlier in the Maim, in the Gimel. Now he adds that it's not a question of, let me give you the physicality of this. It's not a question of, like it explains in Chassidus, that the kav, the projection of divine light, which becomes the basis of Ishtalshalus. So it's not the pshat that Hashem removes the infinite light, leaving only a kav. That won't work, because if there's not going to be a radical removal of the original light, it still remains fundamentally infinite, and those say the Shtalshtus could possibly emerge. So it's not as if the Rav is thinking on his level of thinking, of the idea, and now he's just simply in his own world simplifying it, but still in his own world, or creating, if you like, a singular formula in his own world, instead of the whole elaborate, complexity and nuance of the idea. In his own mind, he has distilled it to a formula. It's not the case. That has to be preceded first by stopping to think altogether the way he does. He has to objectively remove himself from the picture, as it were. That's the great Tzimtzum. So likewise, the Maila as well, as he goes on to say, for Ishtalshalus to emerge, namely finite worlds and so on, the original Oyer has to be not simply just removed, leaving some light over, but the first thing has to be a complete Tzimtzum, and then the projection of the Oyer. It's a new order of Oyer, you follow? Fundamentally finite, in contrast to the infinite. You can't leave off a bit of infinite. Infinite has to be removed completely. That world has to be descended from. and then descended onto the plane of finite, and there give the kav, give the nekuda. He's going to demonstrate now. It's the Rav. The hind or second line. Since the Rav and the Talmud are incomparable, in the so before the Tzimtzum, before the Rav is again stopping to think about the idea as it is on his terms, so in the Rav's mind, in other words, pre-Tzimtzum, the mind of the Makabel has no place at all. In his world, in the way he understands and thinks, the level of his understanding, so the Makabel has no place there. If the Makabel would be there, he would get absolutely nothing. It's completely beyond his camp. Zero. Go over his head completely. So therefore, he can't introduce the Makabel into his world. So the Rav has to remove. Has to again stop thinking in his terms. This is a tzimtzum which removes, as opposed to a tzimtzum that doesn't remove, it just contracts. But there's no real ever fundamental removal from that state. That won't work. It has to be b'derech siluk. So then, so if the Rav will remove the way he understands, his level of understanding, then there's room for the level of the understanding of the Makabel. After all, the Makabel is an intellectual being. The student is intelligent and highly intelligent, perhaps, but of a different order of intelligence of the Rav. It means that the Makabel, it means the student is incapable of ever conceiving an idea on the same plane as the Rav. That's what we mean by Be'in Arayich. He would never be able to conceive of such an idea. It's totally beyond his intellectual capacity. The Rav does. He has these extraordinary insights, and he wants to share that with the Makabel. Now, the idea is something that the Makabel would never arrive at on his own, forever. So in order for the Rav to be able to convey it, he's a god of, first and foremost, this is an act of bittul. He's going to remove himself from the whole idea, his understanding of the idea. It is an idea after all. It is, and because it's seichel, and all seichel is connected, there's logic to all seichel, so it is conveyable, but it's not conveyable the way the Rav knows it. So first has to be, again, b'derech siluk, completely stopping to think on his terms and put himself, as it were, in the mind of the Makabel. So as I nimtza seichel ha'sheich l'Makabel, now the intellect, we're 4 lines from the top of page 371, or 5 lines. Now there's room for the mind of the student. Now how does it convey now? So now the idea, no longer with its complexity, etc., and sophistication and multi-layers, which is the way the Rav thinks about it, and now it's in a conveyable nekuda, one nekuda. However, this nekuda hasn't compromised the idea. It is the idea. It's not something else. And in this nekuda, in this point, that rethinking the whole idea and distilling it in simple formula, in that nekuda, in that kind of statement, is the whole essence of the seichel of the Rav. That's kind of the paradox here. The one is the Rav is completely stopping to think about it on his terms, but the essence of the seichel now is conveyed. Which is why after 40 years, the disciple will be able to unravel it all and grasp it into the complexity of the Rav. But there's still more to go. It's not just now give this nekud. Even after the Rav has now expressed the idea in this general point, out of the Yosef nekud, the klal is, it's too general and vague. At this point, the idea still is that the student gets nothing from it, and he still can't give it over. There's got to be detail. He's got to break it down. He's got to express it in words. And this is all happening in the mind of the Rav. He has to estimate, as it were, play it out in his mind. what he's going to express to the student from this point, the point, the formula, if you like, the discovery. How he's going to say it, which words, what he's going to express and how. So that's the second stage. Hey is now the next letter, Gimel Kavin, that has 3 lines, as opposed to the point of the Yud. Here, the 3 lines hint to and express the details of the mind of the receiver, as the Rav is thinking about the Talmud's mind, as the Rav is thinking about it. We mean the area of the mind, the area, the limited area, the capacity, the area of the makabel of the student. This is all the Rav entertaining. As the Rav is entertaining it in his mind. Okay, so what are the 2 stages so far? There's actually 3 stages. There's the tzimtzum, 3 steps. Tzimtzum derech siluk, still thinking about it, the Rav as he does. Now, the idea now emerges as a general, simple formula. And the kodah, contained in which is the entire idea. At this point, the student, being conveyed this, doesn't know what's going on at all. He's got to get a whole explanation. It's got to be spelled out for him. So now the Rav in his mind is building the idea, the Ois Hey, and he's building the idea as he knows his student can receive it. Still not enough. That's the Ois Hey. So it went Tzimtzum, then Yud, then Hey. Now, are we clear? And before I go further, we're following this? Okay, even after the Rav is thinking about the details of the idea that he can give over to the Talmud, that the Talmud is in fact capable of receiving, this is still within the mind of the master, and the master's hashara means estimation or calculation. It's still to give it the way it is in the mind of the master. It's still too ethereal. It's still too full of light. In other words, it's still got to come down. There's got to be another tzimtzum, and that's the vav. And that's the vav that comes after the hey. Now, looking critically at the vav, we see the 2 components. Yud. First, there's Yud, and there's a line that descends from the Yud. This means this has to be a further tzimtzum, but not as radical as the first time. Not but derech siluk. This is the tzimtzum where we're simply now contracting it, not removing. This is not like the original tzimtzum. It's not a yud on its own. Ella, the yud is attached to the line. As he now explains, as we were just saying, no, that's a different cut. It's a yud behind it. It's not the yud. It's not the same kind of yud. It's not the same function. It doesn't go on tzimtzum. That's bittul, not tzimtzum. It's not negir to this. I mean, it is negir because it's a hey, but it's not the same thing. It's just a bittul overall of the Rav to give over and leave his world and give over to the Talmud. But there's no tzimtzum process in the hey. In the what? The whole Talmud. That's not in the hay. That was pre-Yud. That's the pre-Yud. And now he's saying that the Vav is a different kind of tzimtzum. So we're explaining now that the difference between the tziluk, or just stam tzimtzum. As he says now, the very beginning of the whole process. So the Rav has to stop thinking completely about the idea on his terms. That's what derech siluk. Because as long as the Rav is thinking about the idea on his terms, there's no room at all there for the Mekabel. It's completely beyond his world. Because the way the mind of the master is incomparable to the mind of the disciple. In order that in the mind of the Rav, the Mekabel's intellect should be entertained and should be addressed. He's got to stop thinking about the idea completely. So that's the first yud. The yud stands on its own. The yud is the nekuda that comes as a result of a radical tzimtzum. But now it's different. Now already inside the mind of the Rav, he's already entertaining. The Mekabel is already there. We've just got to trim it down and tailor it to the specifics of the way he's going to actually teach the idea in the classroom. But he's already made that radical shift from his own mind to the mind of his Mekabel. So the tzimtzum required now, after the hay. What was the hay? The hay was already thinking about the mind of the Talmud and how he's going to convey it, but he's still thinking about it in the Rav's terms. To convey right there, at that stage to the Talmud, it's still beyond it. It's got to be another tzimtzum, but now not a radical one. Not a radical tzimtzum. But now a gradual tzimtzum. But the next tzimtzum, which is the yud on top of the vav, what we're talking about now is the way the master is thinking about the level and the mind of the student. So the student, the mind of the student is now being entertained and thought about and considered by the Rav. Now the Rav is not ruminating, thinking on his terms. He's completely left his world. And now in his own mind, he's thinking about entertaining and considering and working on conveying the idea to give to the Mekabel. So the shetach means the area. It's a contained area. It means the limits of the mind of the Mekabel is what the Rav is thinking about. But at this point, he's still. This is the hay is describing now. The hay is considering the limitations of the mind of the student and how he's going to convey the details. But still, it's still way too not limited enough at this point for the Mekabel to receive it, because the Rav, it's still in the Rav's mind. So he's got to descend further in his own mind. So we don't need a radical tzimtzum now, because we're already in the world of the receiver. We've got to now just bring it down. We've got to limit it. We have to. Tzimtzum here means to. It's like putting, light, like putting veils to.
Kind of prism.
Condense is in other words a good word. Contracting. Just to
Filter.
Filter. To filter the Rabbi to filter it, not express it in language and words that the Mekabel won't understand. It's got to be filtered. But we're still now, the radical point is, the shift is rather, that it's all now that I've left his world. He's thinking about the mind of his student, and he's in the hay has already created the general outline of how he's going to convey this to the student, but it's still beyond his skin. He's got to filter that and bring it down into a very, very clear and relatively finite, very clear, succinct presentation that the student will understand. So that's the new tzimtzum now, which is different than the first one, which is filtering. That's the yud, which is part of the vav. Doesn't stand on its own. We're talking here about filtering, drawing it down in successive layers of simplicity that the Mekabel should be able to receive. But we've got to simplify it. We have to simplify it, which means filter. It is coming through the tzimtzum, not a radical tzimtzum. Again, the radical tzimtzum is stop thinking about it the way you're thinking about it. Now he's in the world of the Mekabel. He still has to filter it. We're not finished. Now the final ois hey.
What about the vav of the vav?
The vav. So the vav is the actual details.
Communication.
Is
that the communication already?
No, that's the hay. The hay is the malchus. It's actually going to speak it.
Okay.
But the idea now is coming down and being expressed in language and words that will soon be said, and constructs that the Mekabel should be able to receive it. That's the Vav. The Vav is the result of the Yud. The result of the filter is a graded now coming down, really bringing it down to language in the end that the Mekabel is going to be able to hear, understand, and eventually work his way through after 40 years and grasp the depth of it all. The Vav which is bringing it down, so it's still it's still happening in the mind of the master. It's still lightful too much. So it's coming down, all the way down. Vav, just getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Ideas simpler and simpler and simpler, filtered and filtered. Now we come finally to the final hey. And what's that? This is already the way the Mekabel is going to receive. In other words, it's the words. He's standing in the classroom and he's actually saying the words. That's the final hey. And saying it in such a way that the students hear what he's saying, grasp it, and it's been tailored to their need. So in summary, what are the actually 5 stages in the process of conveying an idea that on its own is totally beyond the ken of the disciple? He would never ever discover it. It's outside his world completely. And yet the master wants to convey it. So what's the first thing? Is the tzimtzum derech siluk. What's that? Which means, what does it mean? Making space. What is it? Simple language. We're talking to a Al McGill student, no Hebrew, and just simple language. What's the master doing?
Recognizing his atomic.
That's fair.
Meaning his mind.
Recognize the Talmud's even before this process. He decided to be a teacher and he wants to give it over. That's the Rotzen, the will that precedes it. He's stopping to think about the idea the way he thinks about the idea. He's about to give over the class, or he's preparing his class. So the first step is he cannot think about the concept the way on his plane. That's it. So that's the removal of self. The removal of self, and in order to be able to convey the idea to the Mekabel. That's the Simtzum Derech Siluk. Then comes what? Well, the way he thinks about the idea. The way he thinks about the idea. So he's not moving himself. He's there in the classroom. He's totally devoted to his disciple. Removal of self in the sense that not thinking about the idea on his terms. So he completely descends from that plane. That's an act of great devotion, of course, to the Talmud. Because thinking about the idea on his plane, he would continue to think about it and discover new ideas, and no longer doing that. Now he wants to enter and needs to enter into the world of his students. So the first thing is he leaves his own world. That's the siluk b'derech, the tzimtzum b'derech siluk. Then the idea is conveyed in a general formula, a point, and nakuda. That's the yud. Now, if he's just going to say that to them, I don't know what he's talking about. Totally beyond them. Equals MC squared. What does that mean? It's completely beyond them. Or any other general concept that has a general klal. So then has to be what? Now in the mind, that's the yud. Then in the mind of the master, he starts entertaining the limits of the disciples' intelligence, and that's the next hey. So give me no language. What's he doing now?
He's outlining it.
Now he's outlining the idea, the details now, of how he's going to convey this idea. But that's still way beyond. There's details here, but they're way beyond the capacity of the Talmud to understand what he's saying. They're still far too ethereal, outside of his world. So now there's got to be another kind of tzimtzum to bring it down. That's the yud on top of the vav. It means a tzimtzum. We have veil it, simplify it, simplify it, simplify it, simplify it. Moshel, perhaps another moshel, another moshel, another moshel, and then at the end of the vav is a final hey, which is going to be the actual words, the actual class lesson that he's going to convey to the disciples. So this is all Moshe v'Yudke v'Vavke. Dugma ze Yevon l'mayla. Okay, so the parallel is, are you following? Yeah? Bottom of the page, or 371. The parallel, the Maila, the Betchila, is quoting here from the Eitz Chaim. It's one of the most famous quotations of Eitz Chaim, right, which we encounter again and again, because in these few lines, the Eitz Chaim describes the whole process of creation. What does it say? Betchila, it's very cryptic, and each word in this quotation from the Arizal, from the Eitz Chaim, is elaborated upon in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of pages of Chassidus, because it needs elaboration, because at face value, very difficult to understand what it means. Here's the quote: "B'tchil, at the beginning of your Ein Sof, the infinite light, Memalev filled," goes on to say, the whole place that later would become an empty place. Now, what does this mean? Place and all these things need to be understood. Just the general idea. So the beginning was the Ein Sof. There was no room, literally, for worlds, a chain of worlds. But God desires to create a chain of worlds, at the bottom of which is the universe, the physical reality. So the process is like this. In order for Hashem to give rise to and express from Himself a revelation that is finite. So then the first thing is the first thing is Hashem has to remove, as it were. We don't mean this. We don't mean this, as Al-Tab explains, literally, as some people understood this. Hashem removes His presence, His infinite light. It means from the perspective of the recipient. The Rav, the Moishe of the Rav also illustrates this point, that even while the Rav is going through this process, the idea exists within him. He didn't compromise that. It's just in terms of the recipient, he's getting the simple idea at the end.
Also, the word bederech gives that away. The bederech.
Bederech siluk, yeah, not what I mean this literally, yeah. So first thing is simsim bederech siluk. There has to be the removal of bederech siluk. The infinite revelation of Hashem is eclipsed, as it were. So now, what's left is a divine presence, a revelation that shaykh tishtaushel. This is in the Moshel. This is now there's room for the mind of the Mekabel. For nichlal b'nekuda achas the yud, and this what's left. This is the first letter of Hashem's name, the letter yud.
This is a quote from the Eitz Chaim. This is part of
No, this is more.
The Rebbe is kind of elaborating
this is
based on the Eitz Chaim.
A little more elaboration, but not a lot. No, the chulu, well, that's the Eitz Chaim beginning. This is not quoting the Eitz Chaim, it's based on the Eitz Chaim. Eitz Chaim is much briefer. So then, v'nichal b'nekuda is achas the yud, then the first thing is yud. Let's just, before we go further, let's just understand what this means, l'mayla. You see, obviously where the mashal breaks down is that before the Rav has given over anything to the Talmud exists. The Talmud is not a creation of the Rav. The Talmud's there. The Rav wants to give over something to the Talmud that's totally beyond him. But the Maila, there is nothing before Hashem decides. And really, I don't want to confuse us, but what's really happening here is the creation of the Talmud. The whole process, what the Eibush is doing is creating a Talmud, creating a recipient, that's really what's going on. In the Moshel, it's giving over an idea to the Talmud. The Talmud was there already before the Rav. But here, really, it's not just that Hashem wants to give over to creation something. There isn't creation. This whole process of Yud Kei Vav Kei is describing the emergence of creation. So that happens on all of these successive levels. Let's also appreciate something else. Obviously, the Eibush can do this whole thing without any process at all. The Eibush wants to create an Ilam Hazeh, from Atzmos, no Eir, no nothing. Atzmos, the universe. Doesn't have to be any process. Hashem can do anything. The whole reason that there is a process, and that's what we're struggling to understand it, and the Mesholim, and the parables, and the Hishtal Shalis, and the Dalad Oilimis, and before that there's the Kesher, and the Dargis, and endless Dargis, and then there's Sfiris Estes, Sfiris Akanduzas, and Leirin Sof. The whole reason for this whole process is that we should have an understanding and a relationship with God. A relationship with God. Because all of those levels are going to exist on our human level in some way. And so we can have a relationship with Hashem and the way He creates and His love for us and desire for us. It's all about the desire for a relationship. And a relationship can only be when you share things in common. If the Eibush would just create from Atzmos to us, there's no relationship. There's connection. You're connected, you're not connected. Do the mitzvah connected, you're not. But a relationship which means ever deepening appreciation, emulation. There's no appreciate. You can't appreciate Atzmos. It's totally beyond us. Atzmos finished. We can't imagine what kind of world we would live in because it's not the reality. But there certainly wouldn't be a ladder of ascent of divinity, no appreciation, no getting to know God, no emulating Him. He has chesed, we should do chesed, gevurah, we should do gevurah. There's no relationship. And Hashem desires a relationship, not just that we exist. The whole point is we should be connected to Him. So therefore, this whole process of hishtalshalos. Why make it so complicated? Why make it so complicated? Hashem wanted to make us. Zakas means really purified, means a relationship. He gave us a lot of Torah mitzvahs. It also means here. Therefore, in the whole process of creation, there's all of these levels. So that there's greater appreciation and greater nuance, etc. And He creates us with all of these levels. So there's ever deepening relationship. A child, as we grow older, deeper, and it's inexhaustible. Virtually, and all in order for us to have a conscious relationship, a love, an awe of Him, an understanding, and that connect Him with all of the human components of which are also, therefore, complex and nuance and levels, psychiatry, psychology, etc. It's all a reflection, man made in the image of God, all because of Hashem's desire for a relationship with us. That's why we're learning all this. Okay, so what is he saying now? We'll continue tomorrow. The whole process of Yudke Vavke, which in the end results in Hishtalshalos, creation, and the bottom line, you and I, physical bodies and souls and minds and hearts that are all a reflection of this.